Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of MTME. I'm Marcos.
Yes, he is. And I'm Andy.
Nice.
Two dudes giving you TV and movie reviews.
And this week we have two movies, one show. Schmigadoon,
Schmigadoon!
nice, Air, and Tetris on Apple TV.
And this week, coming from Apple TV, we've got Schmigadoon,
Schmigadoon.
Season 2, which we both really enjoyed Season 1.
Yeah, I really did. Like they had this classical musical like setting in the first one where it was very wholesome and
Happy.
happy, very bright, very joyful. But
Season 2
Season
takes us
2.
to Chicago.
yeah, very dark, like very procedural or like a drama cop, like very sexy, you know,
And dark at the same time.
Yeah. This whole era, and I think they reference it in the show.
Cicely Strong's character, Melissa, in fact, when they finally get back and they think they're going back to Schmigadoon and they realize they're in Chicago, she's like, but this isn't happy. These are the musicals. I don't even like these musicals.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, they bring all the characters back from the first season, but they all have different roles now. So it's kind of neat to see them showing up in different roles and different parts. But Keegan-Michael Key and Cecilia Strong, they know these characters from the first season. Still, their reality is still outside of theirs. So
Right, they still want to see them in that happy-go-lucky, those characters.
right,
So
yeah. So that's an interesting take. I like how they did that. I don't know. Like, what did you think?
I really liked Season 1. So it was kind of hard this season. It kind of starts, obviously, with Melissa and Josh back in their lives, not having a whole lot of happiness going back to their regular lives.
Yeah.
And then they kind of start craving that happiness, that happy feeling that they had while they were in Schmigadoon. And so they go looking for Schmigadoon, but they don't find it. Instead, that's how they accidentally stumble into Chicago.
Right. I think it's a commentary on like how people think, they'll get their happy ending, right? Because at the end of the first season, they lived happily ever after. But in life, that's not always the case. Like they illustrate that they go back to their jobs, and their marriage isn't as close as they thought it might have been.
And when they first go back, everything is. And it's
Yeah.
kind of cool as you see the time go on, then they kind of become, they're both back, hey, it's good to see you. And this time, it's good to see you.
Right. Yeah, everything's mundane and routine. So yeah, they're kind of in a rut and they don't know what to do with their lives. And so, I like that. I like how the show isn't just one dimensional, where it's a comedy. It kind of delves deep into like human relationships, like especially and I think probably in the United States, where happiness can kind of get diminished just with the day-to-day life. So.
Right. And Keegan-Michael Key and Cicely Strong do a really good job of making these characters, Melissa and Josh, I think very believable. They seem like a regular couple, and that are just looking for a way to spice up their life, to spice up their marriage. And I think that's kind of what I get from this.
Well, they're trying to get the magic back. But yeah, so they're thrust into this whole new world. I love the comedy. I love how they have the narrator now. I think that's the guy from
Titus Burgess.
Burgess, yeah.
He does it from Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah,
Yes.
Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt. Yeah, I recognize him. I like how they're, maybe they're all friends. I know that some of the actors in that other show are now in this show.
And I never really seen the whole thing of Chicago myself. I didn't realize that Chicago was narrated. But I guess the purpose of having Titus Burgess there is that I guess all of these darker musicals had a narrator. So now we've got anything that happens, we've got Titus Burgess saying, and now Josh and Melissa. Yeah, so it's good. He does a good job with it. And if you're familiar with Broadway, you've got, Dove Cameron, Ariana DeBose, who won her Academy Award for West Side Story. You've got Aaron Tveit, Jane Krakowski, Alan Cummings, Kristen Chenoweth. Who doesn't love Kristen Chenoweth? And they're all back for season 2.
Yeah, I only know Dove Cameron from the Disney Channel. Have you ever seen any of their shows on Disney Channel?
Just Schmigadoon.
Right now. Yeah, I've seen her, and I think she had a cameo on Shameless like a long time ago, and it was kind of like a risque part. I was like, oh my goodness. But I enjoyed the show. I think I'll continue to enjoy the show. The first season was great, but I love musicals, so that's
so far. What character? I mean, I know we haven't seen some of the big stars yet, but what character so far do you think is the most appealing in season 2?
I really like Dove Cameron's character. She's her character changed completely from the first season. So it was like this ditzy child, like this blonde child, whatever, this cliche thing, and then now she's kind of thrust into this part where you're kind of wondering if she's the bad guy.
Right.
Because I was kind of calling. I was like, I think she's going to be the bad guy on the whole thing. But then they're introducing other characters that also give you kind of hints of their suspicion. So
and I've never really been a huge fan of Jane Krakowski, but I think she does a really good job as the lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
I think she nails that role, so that's fun to see. So.
Yeah. But she kind of always seems to play the same character. She's always kind of full of herself. Because I remember seeing her in 40 Rock, and her whole personality was just her being full of herself and being very narcissistic and
same thing on Kimmy Schmidt when she was on Kimmy Schmidt.
Yeah.
So yeah,
so she just kind of plays the same character. But so it's a lot of fun.
I also like the physical humor of Cicely Strong and Keegan-Michael Key. I mean, not to give a whole lot but it was only been 2 episodes. He ends up in jail. She ends up having to perform on stage. She can't dance to save her life. But I just find her body, it's hysterical when she's trying to dance and she's bumping into the people. And it actually sometimes a little bit reminds me of like a Lucille Ball. I could see Lucille Ball doing something like that.
Right. Yeah. So that's a very situational comedy like that. But yeah, I would want to get into the scores. I mean, I'd probably give this show. Well, let me see what you think first.
I'm going to give it a 7. And that's only because I feel like season 1 was so strong. I probably would have given season 1 overall an 8. Mm-hmm. That's not to say that it might not get to there, but right now I'm gonna say 7.
I'm gonna agree with you. I'm gonna say 7. I would have given the first season a 7, maybe almost a 7.5. But
again, a little lower than me.
A little lower. But no, it's still a strong show. It's a good comedy. It's got a lot of mystery in it. It's not dull, not bland, so it's a great show.
If you're looking for something new and different, and you love to sing,
and you love musicals, this is
Check it out.
For you. Check it out. And the first movie we're reviewing is Air, starring Matt Damon, Ben Affleck.
Continuing our one-name titles from this week.
One-name title, yeah, Air versus Schmigadoon now.
Yeah,
Air. It's I think it's a cool movie. I like kind of seeing. I mean, I don't know how factual this is, but I like how they kind of show you how things come to be. I was like, things like that show How It's Made, stuff like that. So, but
it really does suck you in. It's the story of shoe salesman Sonny Vaccaro and how he basically leads Nike to try to get Jordan to sign and create the Air Jordan shoes and have Jordan be a part of that. And it's the whole story behind that. And I agree with you. I mean, at the end of this movie, it's kind of nice. They show some of the true stats, but it does make you wonder how much of this is really true, because if this was really what went down, it's definitely very interesting.
Oh, yeah. I might have to do some research later on today or tomorrow about it. But the story is very well written. The actors do a very good job of portraying it.
Well directed.
Ben Affleck.
Kudos for directing and acting.
Yeah, he does an amazing job. I didn't even know Ben Affleck did the directing on it. But it's kind of crazy. The big thing about the movie is like they don't show Michael Jordan's face or anything. They kind of keep him hidden the entire time. And I thought I saw too that Michael Jordan didn't even have anything to do with the movie. Like they kind of bypassed him a little bit.
I think though that what they're really trying to show is in making this decision, he really didn't have a whole lot of say. I think it really came down to pretty much his mother.
Yeah.
And what his mother wanted. So, and I think that was interesting to see as well. And obviously the mother's played Viola Davis. Amazing job. I'm just gonna say it now. I'm gonna say that Viola Davis is gonna be nominated for the supporting actress for Oscar for this movie. It's my first Oscar prediction for the year, guys. So write that down. The other thing that I think is really cool about this movie, it's the first movie made by a group called Artists Equity, which is Ben Affleck, Matt Damon. But what they do is they bring everybody together to make the movie. Everyone kind of takes smaller paychecks up front, and then in return, they get a larger percentage of the overall box office. So I think it's kind of cool because it's kind of like rewarding everybody that has created and put this movie together. And I'm excited to see that it's doing well at the box office.
I wonder how much of a cut that Matt Damon and Ben Affleck took up front.
True.
Jason Bateman. But yeah.
There's levels in the Artist Equity.
Yeah, so we're up here. You guys might be a little down here. But like a revenue share type deal. But I saw an interview once with Matt Damon, and he was talking about how creating revenue for movies was kind of like a double-tiered system, because there was the opening for the box office, and then it had its run in the theaters, and then once that ran out, they had DVD sales on top of that. So it was like a second opening, a second run that they could bank on.
Right.
But now with streaming and everything, that the whole DVD thing is gone now. So now it's hard for them to make movies that they would really like to make because they're not, but they're not necessarily going to be box office hits or these big blowout $billion movies.
Or they've tried to work a different deal for theatrical release versus streaming.
Right. So it's like this big streaming versus theatrical war happening now. So yeah, it's good that they're trying to come up with ways to kind of bridge that gap, So I think so everybody can get paid and make some money and still continue to make movies that are not always just big blow up movie or blow 'em up or action packed movies. So there's movies that tell stories.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's one thing that Ben Affleck and Matt Damon together have always been really good about. They've really put some good stories out there. This is another good story. I can't recommend it enough. I know we've talked about Ben, Matt, and Viola, but I also want to say Jason Bateman is excellent in this movie. Chris Messina does a great job. Chris Tucker, I didn't even recognize him at first. It was the voice. I kept saying, who is that? Who is that? And then I realized, wow, that's Chris Tucker. He also does an incredible job in this movie.
Is that Marlon Wayans that makes an appearance too at the bar? Is that who that was?
I'm not sure. That I was going to look at the cast at the end and I missed that one, so I wasn't sure. So,
but yeah, I thought it was a great movie.
And it really has you rooting for Vaccaro, Matt Damon's character, all the way through from beginning to end. And sometimes when things don't go as well, you're like, oh man, I didn't expect that, or I didn't think that was going to happen. Plus you have this whole war between, I'm going to get them wrong, Nike, Adidas, and Converse, right?
Yep.
And that's kind of interesting going back and looking at that whole story too. So
yeah, I forgot how influential Adidas was in the 80s. And they reference it in Run DMC and how Michael Jordan isn't interested in Nike because they had such a low market share that it wasn't cool.
And they were in Oregon, which is way on the West Coast, and they wanted to be East Coast.
So, but I loved how Matt Damon really didn't take no for an answer, and he just kind of pursued it. They make a reference to if you want to get to the players, you got to kind of go through the families, but it was kind of a no to do that.
Right.
Even that's what he ended up doing. What would you give this movie?
I would give it an 8.
Yeah, I would probably give this movie an 8 as well.
Wow, 2 8s. That's pretty good.
Yeah, double 8. Yeah, it's a very strong movie. It will probably see some Oscar attention. So yeah, check it out.
Very different, very story driven. Absolutely, check it out. And now we've got our third single named title of the week, and this is Tetris, which comes to us from Apple TV. And it's the story of Hank Rogers. I think that's how you say his name. Hank Rogers. Yeah. And his quest to own rights to Tetris for himself and also eventually for Nintendo, which leads him to Russia. Oh, actually not Russia. I guess it would be the USSR, right? Yeah. Where he actually meets the inventor, Alexei Pajitnov, who is apparently the inventor of Tetris. Now, I know it sounds a little dull, but it's actually pretty exciting.
Right, yeah. What was the actor that played Hank Rogers?
Taron Egerton.
Taron Egerton, yeah. I loved him playing this part. Playing the hero for his family. Although it was hard for his family to see what was going on, but he was really, putting himself out there. Literally. I mean, if this, I don't know how factual this story is in the movie, but if real life was anything like this, that had to have been terrifying. Put yourself in the USSR.
You're going to Russia, and there might not be a chance you might not come back. Yeah.
And he was very tenacious, and just blew down doors. He was just like
confronted by the KGB.
Yeah, confronted by the KGB. I can't. I would. The balls on this guy to go in there crazy. And do that. It's just phenomenal.
And I agree with you. I think Taron Egerton gives another amazing performance. I mean, everyone knows him from Kingsman. And then he did Eddie the Eagle. He did Elton John. So I kind of like to see him come back to this role. This reminds me more of the role that he played in Kingsman. But I really thought it was a great character. And really, Taron Egerton and Toby Jones are really the only actors that I really knew from this movie. A lot of them are more international actors.
Right.
We have, I think his name is Nikita Efremov. He plays Alexei. He has a big role the second half of this movie. He doesn't really become a major character in this movie till later on, but when he gets into it, he does a great job as well.
Yeah. I thought the directing, the acting was just top notch. Like, Apple TV is really becoming like a contender with all the other streaming services. I mean, given they got a buttload of money,
right?
They can buy good content. But I'm glad to see that there's another competitor giving us just strong content that you can watch and something that would have easily been in the theaters and done well there.
And I'm shocking that it didn't. But being a lover of Tetris, did you like Tetris?
Oh, I love Tetris.
I know Tetris was so awesome. Oh yeah, we've talked about this, but we talked about having like a Tetris match offer.
Yeah, well, when they do it, I've introduced this idea of having a Tetris tournament. We'll see, maybe after this movie.
I mean, we have to convince our other friends. But,
yeah.
But what I was gonna say is what I liked in this movie too is how there were times in this movie it actually made you feel like you were in the video game. Like it would go level 1, and then the next part it was getting, you were feeling it as you were watching it more intense, and it was level 2.
Right. Yeah, it brought on the anxiety each level. You're like, oh my gosh, like is he going to be able to pull this off? Because there's a lot of backdoor dealing, a lot of backstabbing, just this complicated like chess match of how he's going to play this, how this whole thing's going to play out, and who's going to win. And there's competing companies trying to gain the rights for Tetris in the movie, and the primary person that claims they have the rights don't, and so. Yeah, it's just this big chase down.
Big fight. I mean, Tetris and spies. Who couldn't like this? But I totally agree with you. It was very intriguing. I don't know. What would you rate this?
I would probably rate this one an 8. Yeah.
I'm gonna agree with you. I think this is 8. I was tempted to go 9, but I think I'm gonna go 8 as well, just because it is. There are times where I kind of felt like, okay, all right, I had to take a deep breath. What's going on? What's gonna happen next? And then I would get confused, but I wanted to make sure I was following the story. So. For me, it's still a great movie, but 8 for sure for me too.
Yeah, no, it's a heartwarming story, because it's like these parents, these fathers are just trying to do the best thing they can do for their family, and then I didn't know. Well, I probably did know. I just wasn't thinking about it. But the creator of Tetris didn't, being a communist country, they don't have access to money the same way we do when we create something. It's very, it's a communist country at the time.
He basically created it and gave up his rights to the government.
Right.
And then the government had to deal for the rights. So,
right. And the government had to deal for the rights. And then still, through the KGB, they put pressure on him and his family, and he's got to protect his family. So, yeah, that really resonated with me. Just these guys just going out there, putting everything out there on the line. Just support themselves.
And just like Air, I really want to look into this more. I want to see how much of this really was true,
right? How
much of this was fabricated for Hollywood for the movie. But another great story this week. I think we really had two movies this week that just really resonated and had some good stories behind them.
If you don't have Apple, find somebody that does and borrow their password.
Watch it. You got to see it, guys.
Check it out.
And I would say this one is rated R. But did you think that there was anything in this that was rated R content? I know there was a few curse words.
There's language in it, but I think it's more for the intensity or the suspension of the movie. Okay. It's not a light movie. There are comical aspects in it, but it's very much.
I would have seen this more as like a PG-13 movie, in my honest opinion. Because I watched it, great movie, and I'm surprised they didn't go that way so they could get more people to watch it. But maybe that's why it was released on Apple, so they could just release it with the R rating and put it out there.
Wasn't Air R as well?
Yeah, Air was rated R.
And I would have said the same thing, where it wasn't like it was.
Well, Air definitely had a lot more language than Tetris.
It did. But yeah, I thought it was a strong film, and who knows, it might see some Oscar attention as well. I really thought a lot of the characters stood out, and the tensions between the story and everything was really well done.
You didn't know who you could trust.
You didn't know who you could trust. Yeah. Well, that's the point of the KGB, right? Everything was tapped. All the lines were tapped.
Crazy.
So, but yeah,
we've come a long way since the 80s.
Yeah. So, but yeah, now we have Tetris. Now everybody knows what that is. Everybody knows the theme song.
And if you haven't played it in a while, get it out and play those old Tetris games. Come on.
Yeah, Nintendo. Hey, and thanks for sticking with us at the end of the episode. Again, like I've always said, it really helps us out when you reach the end of the episode. It helps us with the YouTube algorithm, and also comments, likes, subscriptions. If you're new here to the channel, please subscribe or consider subscribing.
And join us on the Facebook page too.
Man, join us on the Facebook page. Yeah, I'm going to post a link to the Facebook page in the description below. And we might, we'll post extra things there as well about polls, and
then also we archive our ratings. So if you want to go back and look at what we rated a TV show or a movie and then watch the video after, that would be great too.
Yeah. Thanks everyone. Until next time.
To infinity and beyond.
To infinity and beyond.